music.
Feel free to share where you are in the chat if you want. So welcome everybody. I'm Kelly Zarnicki. My pronouns are she, her. I'm YALSA president. And I have with me members of the YALSA President's Task Force. If you all want to introduce yourself, please go ahead, Caitlin.
Hi, everybody. I'm Caitlin Carpenter. I am a school librarian in the suburbs of Houston, Texas, Sugar Land, and I'm happy to be part of the team.
Hi, everybody. I am Anthony Bernier. I'm a professor at San Jose State University, and I'm honored to be serving on Kelly's Presidential Task Force.
Hi, everybody. I'm also in Houston, in sort of a neighborhood. I don't know whether to call it a neighborhood or a community. There's all these communities within Houston, and mine is Bel Air. It's in the sort of the south central part of Houston, below River Oaks, just west of Rice University.
Awesome. And I think we have a few members of the task force not here, but hopefully they will be at annual, either in person or virtual. And I didn't mention where I was from. Currently, I'm in physically in Chicago. I see a lot of folks from Illinois, so yay. But normally I live in North Carolina. So welcome and thank you all so much for taking time out of your busy Wednesday. So glad you are here. Just a reminder that this session is being recorded. You probably heard that when you came on. And if you don't want your image recorded, we just ask that you keep your video camera off. And when you have questions, we ask that you just type them in the box and we will monitor those as best as we can. I'm glad to answer questions throughout the presentation as well as anyone else on the task force. And we'll also have time at the end to answer questions as well. So today's topic is exploring the concept of rebuilding teen social capital. And I was really interested in exploring this for my task force because, you know, I came on as president during the pandemic, and I'm sure, you know, whether we're at a public library, school library, or whatever organization we're from, you know, we're all experiencing a different, I would say, opportunities of how to reach teens. And you're going to hear a little bit from the panel of, you know, where we're at and where we're trying to go. And we're really interested in hearing where you all are coming from as well. And we'll have an opportunity to do that at the toward the end. We have a Padlet exercise, so that'll allow us all to type and chat that way. And for now, I think we're going to go to the next slide, please. Okay, so as I said, the context of teen social capital really was the pandemic. And, you know, just speaking from the experience of my library and all the different iterations that we've been through and are still going through. So I'm in a public library. I mentioned I'm in North Carolina. I'm in Charlotte. And currently we are open. You know, we don't have to wear masks, which I know differs from all over the country. And I just really got me thinking, and especially when I talk to members of the task force too, that, you know, what are the challenges? What are the opportunities that we have? Can we create something new from where we came from? You know, so we're probably seeing mental health issues in ways that we didn't before. What are teens needing? What are they coming to our libraries for? So those are some of the questions that none of us necessarily on the panel are experts at, but we're wanting to put it out there, ask the questions, and see what we can come up with as a collective. Next slide. Go ahead, me? Anthony. Yeah, thanks.
Well, thanks, Kelly. I'm going to start us off a little bit with some framing concepts. So I want you to imagine this, although it doesn't take a great deal of imagination, but imagine no real school, no parties, no real prom, no real graduation, not going to the movies or shopping or concerts, dramatically curtailed or no visiting of family, no athletics or athletic events, no real faith community, no buses or driving in cars with friends. Imagine all that at once with few changes in expectations for your performance or growth or well-being. So in a time before pandemic, we all pretty much just took the notion of being public for granted. You know, we worked, we transported, we worshiped, we educated, we entertained, we partied, and we gathered with impunity. During pandemic, we were shuttered, sequestered, and even frightened about being among others. And we're not even entirely confident that we're out of the woods yet. So when we think about young people in particular, their lives, which are so based in social experience that have been sundered and disconnected from public experience, from the entire social sphere. First, we sequestered them at home, and many of them live in very small living spaces, and then forced them into online education, and then on again, off again online experiences, a circumstance that's lingering on now for years. During this time, young people were required or forced to spend what social capital they had prior to being locked in. While academics like me will debate the finer points of defining social capital, librarians like me can consider social capital simply as the beneficial, trust-based relationships of reciprocity and the resources they provide to bridge social cohesion. During pandemic, young people's previous relationships often withered with friends, relatives, teachers, coaches, and other trusted adults. And they were largely deprived of the opportunity to establish new or even observe normal life in public. The notion of declining public life itself is not new. Not very long ago in 2000, sociologist Robert Putnam published a pretty popular study that you might even recall called Bowling Alone, the Collapse of and Revival of American Community. In it, he used the image of a man bowling by himself as a metaphor to contrast what Putnam argued was a previous and robust public life in which people did things together in public. While scholars argue over the degree to which Putnam is correct, certainly pandemic threw those kinds of patterns into high gear. The question for us today as public service professionals dedicated to serving young people is this: what do we know of the social capital implications of pandemic for youth? What I'd like to suggest today is that lots of people are claiming they know already. Here's an example of an illustration of many common assumptions. It's from the Wall Street Journal, and it contains lots of cliched kinds of assumptions. But upon what possible evidence could doctors justify such a huge demographic generalization so soon? We are in uncharted territory regarding what social capital youth lost and what they might need now. But the very fact of being in uncharted territory means that we're not sure about how to assess what we are and where we are. We don't yet have a clue about the implications of pandemic on young people in either the immediate or the long term. While the emotional and psychological stressors challenging people like us in public service during the pandemic are often reduced to simply being part of the job, the stressors challenging youth have yet to be substantially documented. At least they've not been documented in any substantial way to guide us in responding to the challenges. So the question before us is not easily answered with a simple top tips or claims about best practices. We're going to be making this stuff up as we go, but in trying to respond to this unique moment, libraries once again can provide unexpected public value in contributing to community well-being. Among the resources that youth have largely been deprived over the past several years are the opportunities to make decisions, social decisions, cultivate new relationships, engage conventional communication practices outside of the frames of screens, or build social self-awareness through everyday experiences in quality public venues like libraries. To put it in terms of our topic today, they've been deprived of building new social capital. So there are three things that we do know. Aside from being deprived of the opportunities for normal growth, and on a more practical level, Being unable to build new social capital and confidence also poses challenges for developing workplace readiness muscles. 2, from IFLA, the International Federation of Library Associations, they released a trend report for 2021 in which they identified 20 political, social, economic, cultural trends that shape the field. There are 3 points that were relevant in those 20. We need to help young people rediscover the value of public spaces, offering opportunities for meaningful social exchange and interaction. We must find ways to preserve and trumpet libraries as shared institutions. And we must rededicate ourselves to sharing information resources for those without access. And then finally, our own professional capacities, and there are 3. Our ethical commitment to intellectual freedom, public service, and information access. Our qualifications to serve in and assert influence at all levels of any information environment, be that public service through higher administration. And then our responsibilities for training and supervising staff. How do we take now what we know and apply it to what we don't know, to address what we suspect are the changes and challenges that young people are facing as they build new social capital? And with that, I turn the PowerPoint over.
Thank you, Anthony. So yeah, I created this little Wordle back in the day when Wordle was something that you created and wasn't something that you participated in as a game. But and the word questions kept coming up as something that I feel we have more questions than, like Anthony said, we have answers, because we are in uncharted territories, and this is brand new. And I think what Anthony is also saying is that we need to be critical of what we're reading and seeing that is making definitive statements about where teens are, unless we know, unless we're talking to them in our communities or really experiencing first hand examples of, but otherwise we don't know. Go ahead to the next slide, please. Okay, and Caitlin, I think this is you. So we invited folks on the task force to talk about some of the activities that they are doing with and for their teens.
All right, so just to give a little context, I am a high school librarian. I've not had actually very many years of experience. I'm only in year 3 of my librarianship, but so I started in the middle of COVID. But I wanted to talk about, like, from our meetings in our YALSA task force, one of the great things that Anthony had kind of mentioned was how, like, we should stop looking at kids and teens as those with deficits. We often look at what we have to impart upon them instead of us kind of looking at what they bring to the table already. So I tried to kind of focus on that, and I just put a few examples of what I've been trying to do in my library to regain some of that social capital. I focused on a board game cafe, and if I keep looking over this way, it's because it's right over to my left. And we just finished our lunch, so it's been a little crazy here. But I actually was inspired by my students to create a board game cafe. And the reason for that was during the middle of the pandemic, I saw so many of the students that were like reaching out online. We had a very active LMS, our learning management system of Schoology, with our library for our kids to be able to reach out and interact with each other. But it kind of, you could tell that they were missing that social interaction. And I was kind of looking at what was the favorite thing that all of my kids loved doing before the world shut down. And one of them was just playing a simple game of Uno. They get into it. They get so into it that I had a group of seniors steal a green 6, sign it, and hide it in my library as their way of leaving their mark. I found it like the next day because I was in the middle of reshelving, but I kind of took that as, you know, board games are something that you get to use all of your brain and all of those social interactions, soft skills, things like that, so that you're not just yelling at each other over a game in a productive way, while not just staring at our phones. So I came up with this idea and was very lucky that I got a grant funded for us to be able to add 80+ games and some Keurigs. And I've also been working on incentivizing them seeing the library as a place that that has like school spirit and community spirit. So we started this year a incentive program for the entire school. So if you see a student participating in school related things or being a positive role model to other students, then we reward them with virtual dollars or points. And I've really spearheaded using the library programming and just the library in general as a way to enforce that as well, because we also know that there's a lot of teens that are out there that are not like, yay, in your face all the time. You definitely have those, but allowing them to like invest in their own ways has been really big for me. And when we're talking about social capital. So then we can move on to the next slide.
Thanks, Caitlin. I also, can we go back one? I'm sorry, Anthony, if we can just hang out a little bit on the programming. Thanks. I wanted to ask Brooke, do you want to share a bit? I know you said you're a power programmer. If there's, you know, 1 or 2 programs that you want to share that you feel, you know, you've done since or during the pandemic that has maybe been different from what you've done before.
Well, in Texas during the pandemic, my district, they had a color spectrum, and when we were under red, the students could not go into the physical library and browse the shelves. They didn't want them touching the books, and everything they touched had to go in a quarantine area for 5 days. Even if they just touched a book, pulled it out, looked at it, and said, oh, I don't want this book, it had to go in quarantine. So thank goodness this semester, with the change in semester, we were able to go off the quarantine for the first time in a year and a half, which was great. But so I had to bring the library out in order to keep it going. And one thing I created was I had a system where we trained the kids to put holds on books, and I would pull them off the shelves and deliver them either at lunch or during their study hall, or if content teachers, English and otherwise, wanted to set up a time, I would deliver during that time. And you know, circulation did go down just because the experience of visiting the library and shopping around and browsing was lost. So, and the library is very much an experience. And when the kids lost that, you know, it was hard for a lot of them to browse online, you know, using our catalog and find what they wanted, because they were so, they were missing that tangible experience of being able to pluck a book off the shelf and look at it. But you know, we did a good job making sure that they had the books they wanted. And then this year, you know, it just exploded. I was very nervous to know, to see what they would do after having lost the physical library for a year, a little over a year. Would they be excited about it again? Did I lose them forever? I didn't know. And like the 6th, I teach at a 6th through 8th campus. The incoming 6th graders who were fifth graders last year, what had their experience been like? How were they coming into my school? Were they going to be excited? Did they want to visit the library again? I just didn't know, and I was real nervous. But it's been amazing, and the kids just love it. And you can really see, even in a normal school year, I'm very concerned about the struggling and reluctant readers, and the readers who maybe didn't have a good experience before they came to my school, reading wise, or English language learners, any students that come in that are high needs in some way. That's my focus. And with the pandemic, it just increased tenfold there. I did not want them to get left behind or ignored or underrepresented. And definitely, I think the concern for all librarians right now is comfort and confidence in the library. And I wanted, our neediest kids to have that, especially so. And so I've been working on that this year, and making sure that if they don't get opportunities to come to the library, that I go out to them. And I still have, I have my mobile library services during the shared school study hall period, which is 1:30 to 2:30, Monday through Thursday. And I go out to the classrooms, and I can either deliver books or I collect late books. It's really helped me with overdues. So it's nice. Growing up, the librarian was really sequestered in the library and didn't really do a lot of outreach. So I've been noticing a lot of 21st century librarians that are getting out more visible, and I've been trying to do that too.
Awesome. Thanks, Brooke. And thank you both for sharing. And I'm curious, Caitlin or Brooke, if either or both of you had come upon any resistance, whether, it was that you can talk about with it, from the youth themselves, or, maybe resistance from administration and trying to make it happen, what you did, anything like that along the way, and what changed folks to see that, hey, this is okay if we do that, the kids are really interested, that sort of thing. And if there wasn't but I'm just curious.
I mean, I have to say I'm one of the lucky ones with a phenomenal admin team that were behind me the whole way. I did a lot of what Brooke also mentioned of last year. We were only at about 40% of attendance. We did have a high percentage of our school demographics. Their parents chose to keep them at home. So we only had 40%, and we weren't really available for browsing and checkout. So I did book carts and would go down to classrooms, and I had a table and a display set up each week outside the library, nearly every single day, so that they would remember the library. I try really hard to get out there. I mean, I dressed up, our school mascot is a Viking, and I dressed up as one as an incentive for the kids to participate in certain things. I'm not expecting every librarian to be like that, but it was the little things that I feel like has made myself and the library more essential to the school community and the school culture. So that has been really important.
Yeah, and I think it's important with teenagers, or in my case, preteens, to establish relationships with the kids. And it takes a while to build that trust. They need to, pretty words can only get so far. They actually need to see you doing it. And if they're going to offer suggestions on books to buy or activities to plan, they want to see those suggestions come to fruition. And so I've tried to have ways online and in person for them to. Right now we have a big dry erase board. A teacher didn't want it. It was one of those big, it was on wheels, big dry erase board, giant. And a teacher was getting rid of it, and I grabbed it and decorated it, and we call it the dream board, and the kids get to write suggestions. And when I put them on the vendor list, I erase them. So the kids know that if their suggestion is not there, it's because I already added it onto the list. And then I try to remember, you know, hey, the book you requested 3 months ago, it came in, it's here. So it's nice to see. I think the kids like that their voices are being heard and they're seeing evidence of those voices. And it's nice for me to get a diverse, all these suggestions coming from diverse student voices. So I really liked that.
Great, thank you both. I love hearing from the school libraries. I don't think we hear enough from that. So thank you. And Anthony, feel free if you have any questions or wanted to add anything, or we can continue to move on. All right, move on. And I'm looking at the chat too. I know we have a lot of folks on this webinar, so you all are pretty quiet, but please feel free to jump in the chat. If anything is resonating with you, if you have more questions, if you're seeing things in your own libraries that we're not talking about, please feel free to populate the chat. And in the meantime, I think we're going to go to our exercise here. It's with Padlet, and I think we need to put the URL in so that folks can see our screen. Is that correct? Yeah, thank you, Caitlin. Anthony, do you want to do this on your computer? I'm not sure if you can, if you're sharing your screen now with with the PowerPoint. Awesome, thank you. I love that. All right, so some of you might have used Padlet before, some of you might not have, and what we have up here is just a set of questions that we wanted to get folks thinking about in terms of rebuilding teen social capital. And we were going to do breakout rooms, but I think we have a bit fewer participants and panelists, so I think we'll just try it in one giant room like this. And basically, you should be able to grab the plus sign. Is that correct? If you're on, yeah, so you need to be on your computer, have this pulled up, and then you can add what's called like sticky notes in response to these questions. So if I misspoke on how to do this, please someone jump in.
Yeah, Padlet is really, really easy to use. So the way that you have it set up is each one has a column. If you have an answer to that question, an idea, you want to brag about something that you've been doing in your library, you can press the little plus button. And then you can either type something fantastic, as it says, as Anthony is modeling for us right now. And then if you want to take a picture, leave a link. You can also click the three little dots so that you can add an image or a GIF. As you saw, I put fines. I got rid of them before the pandemic, and every kid was like, what? How dare? What? Not how dare I, but they were like, are you serious? So for me, that was always a big like hurdle for a lot of my students. And so just by getting rid of those, if they have a book that's out and not returned, do I still talk to them about it? Yeah, but I'm not going to, drive them crazy and charge them $5 every single time that they turn in something late. I'm like, as long as I get it back, that's all I care about. So it looks like we already have some really good stuff being put up here. So thank you guys.
Thanks, Caitlin. And we can also like quote unquote like these posts that people are making, so that will tell us like, yes, this is resonating with me, or yes, I agree, or yes, in my library as well. So you can select the heart image, even if you don't feel like typing something, maybe somebody said something and you can go ahead and add it. So we'll just take a few minutes and populate these. Oh, and I'm curious too, also the last one, maybe folks are making their way over to it, but we've got the how might programming services change when being aware of building social capital. So that just looked a little empty, but maybe it's because it's at the end. Yeah, teen led and advocated. Very good. Oh, sure, no problem. Yeah, so Caitlin just dropped it. Becky,
Got it.
thank you.
I also want to say this might, I don't know if, and I'd love to get other people's opinions. One of the things that I feel has really improved since the pandemic has been collaborating across districts and different libraries. I don't know about everybody else, but like we at our district, I work in Fort Bend ISD, and we have about 13 high schools. So we have 13 high school librarians and like 80 plus elementary librarians, I think like 25 middle school. But some of the things like being able to have Teams meetings or Zoom meetings like this has really helped us with collaborating and coming up with ideas and being able to share things like this. That benefits all of our students because yeah, all of our schools look different and all of our libraries look different, especially when it comes to who we serve. But, you know, getting those ideas from other librarians has been super helpful.
Yeah, and I see someone kind of echoed that, Caitlin, and saying, you know, less silos, more partnering, definitely. Ooh, what are blind book boxes? I'm assuming that means you don't know what you're getting, but I don't know for sure.
We did something kind of similar to that. We did bundles during COVID when I last year, and we had 60% of our students online, is they could sign up for a genre book bundle. And so they could choose how many books they wanted. And sometimes they could give us specific things that they wanted to see, like give me more books like, and we could give them read-alikes. So I think that that has been helpful, and I'm going to assume that's similar to what the blind book boxes are, but until we know who wrote that, it'll be a little hard to have them describe. I really like the one about becoming more aware of mental health programming. That has been really big in our district because they just need it. This generation, I feel like, is one of the most self-aware, which is great, but then also like we have not been able to give them as much tools maybe to deal with their self-awareness. So I think mental health programming is really great.
Yeah, and I see someone posted a really long post about the blind book, so thank you. Yeah, and Sonia asked if we're going to be able to save this. We were kind of chatting amongst ourselves too. I think we'll be able to save the link and maybe post the link next to the recording, if that makes sense. So in that sense, it would be saved. Okay, cool. And I saw one toward the beginning about it's just crickets here in the library, and right now it's crickets all day long. Yeah, and a couple people like that. So I would say, speaking from my own experience too, and I mentioned I work in Charlotte, North Carolina, and a lot of the days it can be like that. I work in a very urban, downtown place that used to be very, very lively, and we're still trying to figure it out. I feel like we've got a lot of one-on-one relationships and interactions that we're building with the teens, but it's very different. And unfortunately, I definitely don't have all the answers either as well. So we're seeing that too, and just trying to figure out what community partners are there, what new opportunities exist now that didn't before. And now that we're in a different place with the pandemic in terms of what we can and can't do, then we're trying to figure out, how can we rebuild those partnerships and reach out a little bit more. So I feel like we have more freedom, and we just don't know what it'll look like exactly yet. So. Yeah, and Anthony mentioned too, we're going to be serving on the ALA annual panel. So if folks are able to come to DC, we'll be presenting a version of this again. So yeah, absolutely.
Also, just an FYI, for those of you who are interested in saving this Padlet, the link is always going to be live. So if you star this and bookmark it, you can keep it. But also if you go up to the share button in the top right-hand corner, you can also, yes, as Anthony is pointing out, if you'll click on that, Anthony, if you click on the share button, you can also save it as an image, a PDF, CSV, and an Excel spreadsheet of everything that people post on here. Or of course you can print it. So those are all of the different ways that you can save this at the end. If you want to be able to get back to it, but you don't want to have that bookmark clogging up your Google Chrome or whatever internet service.
Yeah, thanks, Caitlin. And I'm also seeing stuff in the chat about, we're not getting nearly the number of teens we used to get. Yeah, some for virtual, but it's not the same. And I think sometimes too, in looking at rebuilding social capital, does that mean we have other opportunities for a different kind of service? I know you know, I certainly mourn a lot when it feels like crickets, when we don't see anybody in there, but what opportunities does it present to us? And I know Caitlin and Brooke talked about, you know, stuff that they're doing in person, and you know, the collaborations are something new that we're exploring too. So, you know, I right now it might feel like we're in this in between space and kind of uncomfortable, and like maybe we're not making a huge difference, but I also like to look at it as opportunity to figure out what do teens need differently and how can we provide it.
Kelly, I'd like to explore one topic that was raised earlier about silos, if this is a okay time, or do you want to
Please,
stop and
no, please.
process? Um, Typically, when we've imagined teen advisory groups or tags or tabs or what have you, the topics that are discussed focus on teen services. So what materials are required or needed or looked for, or what programming is needed or looked for. Um, One of the things that I was considering in terms of coming back and building new social capital is introducing the notion that the teen advisory boards can be introduced to library-wide concepts, um, introduced, for example, to the budget, introduced, for example, to members of the administration, introduced to perhaps a new building is underway or a renovation is underway that young people could contribute, learn about, and then contribute to across the library's operations, not simply in the YA silo. That's a whole different way of imagining a teen advisory group, but it brings them into the larger public realm in a way that working on only the YA collections or YA programming or YA outreach can't do. And I'm hoping that we experiment more with those kinds of ways of thinking differently about building social capital in a broader way rather than just building back what we had before. One of the ways, for example, of starting to do that is that at each one of the council meetings or teen advisory board meetings is you have a 20-minute interview with someone that you bring in, the director, associate director, the bookmobile staff, someone like that, to find out a little bit about their career, about what they do, how they contribute to the library, how they imagine the library, how they imagine young people participating in the library. Those interviews can be done very elegantly in a rather short time period, and it's free. And usually staff are game to talk about their role in the library. And that's one way over time of opening up the conversation to a broader social capital.
Thanks, Anthony. And I'm also looking at the last one too. I like where folks are saying like, stop caring about numbers. Relationships are more important than attendance numbers. Absolutely. And so we might know that, and hopefully the data that administration is collecting, and if they're not, then perhaps we can suggest that they're collecting additional data of the stories of the relationships that we're building. And yeah, and there might be a hybrid of virtual space and physical space. Absolutely. You know, as much as I'm sure I've seen folks comment in here, you know, where the virtual just doesn't, teens aren't showing up as much. I completely agree. I hope we don't get rid of it, because I think it does allow some to participate that might not, or participate differently. So again, I see that more as an opportunity than, you know, than anything, and hopefully it won't go away. Did anyone see anything else that we wanted to linger on, or give it a few more minutes? I know folks are still typing. This has been great. I hope, yeah, I think this has been a great way to get this many folks to participate, because obviously we can't all talk at once. So this has been awesome to see the variety of responses. So thank you all for adding your thoughts and questions. And I think this helps give us material to work with for annual as well. And I just want to give a shout out to Molly. I know Molly is in the audience. She is on the the panel, the task force. So she is here as well. But I think she joined a little bit late. So thank you for being here, Molly.
Thanks, Kelly.
That's a great comment. Yeah, Sonia. So Sonia says her boss has been burned on teen advisory boards before. So they changed the name to Teen Leadership Committee. So yeah, our young adult library leaders. I love it. Yeah. Or, oh, you want to start? I'm sorry. Yes, got it.
Sonia, I think that's such a great direction to head in. I think that giving our teens an opportunity to have more leadership opportunities in the library is something that we should really be thinking more of in terms of helping them to build back social capital. I think they have lost so much over the last 2 years in terms of control, what they're able to do, and to have an opportunity to have a voice and take on some leadership responsibility seems like a really, a great opportunity for the library to reach teens.
Carla, you may recognize this from someone who's a former mayor of Chicago, but he was infamous perhaps, for talking about when he was in the White House as chief of staff for President Obama, don't waste a good catastrophe or don't waste a good disaster. This is an opportunity for us to introduce new things and say we're trying to catch up. And we're not going to have, well, we hope we don't have a catastrophe of this size again, but while we do have it at hand, introducing new things as a way to catch up or to re-innovate, I think is a really good excuse.
Yeah, and I really like Sarah's comment about how TAB or a leadership council doesn't have to just be about the library, that it can be about connecting to the community with the library as the hub. It's a great comment.
Is there anything anyone else sees, or do we think we've exhausted ourselves for now? I'm so excited to go back and read all of this because it's coming in so fast, and I just want to see. I've been skimming it as I can, so this is great. Well, even though we didn't give you all a ton of answers, which was not our intention, hopefully there's some renewed energy and feeling of we're in this together in a sense, because again, we are all very different locations, funding, teens, et cetera, but we're still passionate and like Anthony said, trying to find opportunity within this catastrophe. So I don't want to rush anyone. Does anyone have anything else to add, or we feel good for now? Tomorrow at the same time, we have a webinar that another member of the task force is presenting, and there is a fee for the webinar, so that's a little difference in the snack and chat. And Siva is her name. She is from the New York Public Library, and there's going to be 2 presenters with her that are going to be talking about some really robust programs they've been doing. So yes, excuse me. Thank you, Carla. So YALSA members are free for tomorrow. That's a big, important distinction there. So, and it is at the same time as this one was. So 1 o'clock Central. And yes, that program will be recorded as well. So I would love for folks to join us because that's kind of an extension of what we're doing here in this discussion as well. So, oh, awesome. Thanks, Nancy. We do have a survey. I'm going to see if I can copy it here. We just ask folks to fill it out when you have the opportunity, because that certainly gives us, yes, thank you. That certainly gives us feedback, especially we mentioned several times, we'll be talking about this again at annual and what is helpful, what would you like to see different? We would love to hear what you have to say. All right, and any more questions that we can answer in the chat, please feel free. We have a few more minutes.
Also, guys, the Padlet doesn't like close down at the end of this webinar or anything. It is a live website. So if there's something that we didn't get to, or you think of a couple of hours from now, please feel free to continue adding to it. So that when we meet together as a task force again to discuss what we'll be doing for the ALA program, then we have even more of your wonderful ideas to add to our list.
Definitely, I love that. Thanks, Caitlin. And yes, thank you, Carla. I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm trying to manage 2 webinars at once. So yes, ignore my link, but use Caitlin's, please. So yeah, the first evaluation, do not use mine unless you attend tomorrow's webinar. So.
Before we break huddle, I would just like to finally say that it's not just the pandemic that has exposed so many divisions in the culture at the moment. We're all feeling that in lots of different ways, no matter what side we're on. And there's been a great deal of erosion of trust in social and especially public service institutions. So trust is a big commodity now with us, especially with young people. And I think we have an opportunity here, as we've discussed, in so many different ways, to reimagine ways in which we can help young people build new social capital that they have expended and lost, but also build trust in a way that we may not have had with them before in any way. So all of those things are at play at the same time, and it falls to us to figure it out. And I'm glad everybody was able to share about this, and I'm hoping that we'll have more good discussion at ALA. Thank you, Kelly, for inviting us.
Awesome, thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of your Wednesday.
Thanks all.